Hi everyone, my name is Dalir, and today I want to talk about something that quietly shapes how democracy actually works: lobbying. My project, How Democracies Regulate Lobbying, explores how countries around the world deal with political influence and what lessons can the United States might learn from them. I study how politics and power interact, not the big, dramatic kind of power you see on TV, but subtle kind, the kind that happens behind closed doors in meetings between lobbyists and lawmakers. Because that's what the real influence begins. Lobbying affects every decision that government make, from climate policy to healthcare to the price of your groceries. If we don't understand who influences those decisions, we don't really understand who runs for democracies. That's why this topic matters. My research started with a TED talk by Larry Lessig called We the People and the Republic We Must Reclaim. In that talk, Lessig argues that American democracy is corrupted not by criminals, but by a corruption of dependency. He explains that politicians in the United States depend more on wealthy donors than on citizens. In his words, members of Congress spend between 30 and 70 of their time raising money. That means their real constituents aren't the people, they are the funders. But here's what Lessig didn't explore. He focused on America's problem, but never asked the question, what about other democracies? How do they handle lobbying, donations, and influence? That gap became my starting point for the research. My research question is simple: how do other democracies regulate lobbying and political donations compared to the United States? Because if the US system is broken, maybe someone else has already figured out how to fix it. So, after analyzing multiple democracies like Europe, Canada, and others, I found that transparency alone isn't enough. The real key is enforcement and accountability. As one researcher put it, lobbying regulations must move beyond disclosure and towards meaningful sanctions. Let's start with the European Union. In 2021, the European Union reformed its lobbying rules and introduced a mandatory transparency register, meaning no one can lobby European Union officials unless they are publicly registered. The rule is clear: no registrations, no lobbying. Every meeting, email, or event involving lobbyists must be logged and accessible to the public. It's one of the most ambitious transparency efforts in the world. The system looks perfect on paper, yet there are no effective sanctions for those who fail to comply. So, transparency without punishment becomes symbolic, not structural. Transparency works best when it's paired with the enforcement. Otherwise, it's like putting glass walls around the corruption. You can see it, but you can't stop it. So my question became, what if US adopted a similar system, but added real consequences for violations? Then I turned to Canada, one of the most transparent democracies in the world. Canada lobbying acquires detailed registration and reporting, but there is a catch. Many lobbyists avoid these rules because of the 20% threshold loophole. So basically, if lobbying takes less than 20% of someone's job, they don't have to register it. So if you're a corporate consultant who lobbies just one day a week, you can operate completely in the dark. As Hank explains, this unresolved issue has been continuously brought up time and time again. This loophole weakens public trust because even if the rules exist, they are meaningless if people can find ways around them. It's like having a speed limit but no police to enforce it. Canada's model teaches an important lesson: laws don't work unless someone enforces them. Regulations without enforcement is just performance. So the next logical question is, how can democracies make lobbying laws both transparent and powerful? Now let's move beyond single countries and look globally. Lobbying has become an international industry. There are now over 100,000 registered lobbyists worldwide, influencing policy across borders. It's not just national anymore, it's transnational. And the problem? Lobbyists innovate faster than government can rule. As Cohen and his colleagues point out, interest group strategy are more advanced than the regulatory practices meant to contain them. So basically laws are just always playing catch up. Some experts suggesting building interconnected international lobbying databases shared between democracies. That way companies can't simply operate without a court with weaker laws to hide their influence. Imagine a world where every lobbying meeting in Brussels, Ottawa, or Washington is recorded in one transparent system. This idea sounds ambitious, but it's realistic. Because democracy isn't national anymore, it's global, and transparency should be too. So, the real question is, can democracies coordinate transparency internationally? Now, let's talk about the money, the heart of political influence. In Europe, most political parties are funded largely through public financing, not private donors. That means fewer billionaires and more taxpayer accountability. But here's the twist. Even with limits, corruption finds its ways. Researchers discovered that caps on political donations have often been circumvented by splitting large donations into smaller amounts. So again, laws alone don't fix behavior. Europe experience proves something is crucial. Its transparency helps, but only when people actually watch and act on the information. In other words, transparency without oversight is just an illusion. We don't just open data, we need engaged citizens. So, after studying all these systems, the Europe, Canada, global networks, and European finance, here's what I learned. No system is perfect, but the democracies that succeed are those that enforce accountability, not just promise. Laws matter, but courage, political and civil courage, matters more. The United States, as Larry Lessig said, must reclaim the republic, but it can't do it without transparency alone. It needs teeth, rules that bite, consequences that matter, and citizens who care enough to hold power accountable. Because democracy isn't destroyed in one moment, it's weakened quietly, every time we look away. This research was inspired by Larry Lessig's vision and supported by the work of scholars from Canada, European Union, and beyond. I also would like to thank my English 107 class and Professor Tonya Ake for helping me sharpen my analysis and for reminding me that questioning power is the heart of academic work. So, the next time we ask who governs us, remember, it's not just politicians or lobbyists, it's us. But democracy only works if we demand to see how it's being run. Thank you.